Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. A good topic for you today? Let's do it. What's the scariest thing that has happened in your life? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. My mom went missing for about 18 hours. I couldn't get in contact with her, and no one believed me that something was wrong. Even my own family members kept dismissing it, saying that they thought she was just sleeping or away from her phone or whatever. But not being able to reach her after a couple hours was really uncommon. I couldn't even convince anyone from her nursing group to go check on her. I stayed up all night freaking out, trying to get someone to go check on her. I live 3,000 miles away, so I couldn't go. I got a call from my brother at 7 a.m. saying, "You were right. They found her. She died." For months after that, if anyone took more than a minute or so to respond to a text or pick up the phone, I'd have a panic attack. Scary is subjective to everyone, but for me, it was more mentally emotional scary. I was 36 weeks pregnant, and my little girl hadn't moved much that morning. No bleeding, no intense cramps, but something was off, big time. I started getting dizzy and sweaty. I chalked that off to panicking. Anyways, fast forward to the hospital not long after that gut feeling. First, no heartbeat detected. Okay, panic is coming back. I'm talking to my daughter, rubbing my stomach like, "Come on, sweetie, wake up. You're making mama look crazy." I immediately was rushed into ultrasound, and there she was, forever asleep like a doll. Not sure if they said it just to make me feel better, with trusting my instinct, but apparently she had passed around the time I knew I needed to head to the ER. I was induced at 36 weeks and gave birth to an absolute doll. She was perfect. Her cord somehow wrapped and cut off her oxygen supply. Her name was Lydia, and she should have been 3 this year. Scariest moments of my life. Around 12 years old, I went into McDonald's to order for a carload of siblings and their friends, late at night. I must have drawn the short straw, or because I was the youngest, but as I was standing in front to order, a great guy in a beige trench coat gave me a cold stare, and then looked at the black teenaged girl working the register. He then whipped out a .38 special pistol and looked at me again, pointed it at me, then suddenly changed his mind and put the barrel right up to his forehead. She and I were just frozen. It was like time stood still, even for him, because without making a sound, and it was a miracle, and I don't care if you're not a believer in the supernatural, 2 big Denver cops busted through the 2 glass double doors with all their gear on and grabbed him and pummeled him to the ground, and the gun fell a few inches from there. And they pinned him so hard he was wincing in pain, but unable to move a muscle. I shakingly walked out of the Mickey D's and went to the car. Everyone was asking in a complaining tone, "Where's the food?" That's all I remember. And one of the group, the driver probably, must have seen the cop car lights flashing and realized to go somewhere else. To this day, the complete lack of concern for my well-being from family and community made me always have a tinge of distrust of other people. For a solid 5 years, I was certain that I had seen the real world, not the afterlife, but like I was unplugged briefly by these strange-looking creatures or robots or something. They had these gigantic, blocky arms and hands and neon green eyes. There was the strange humming sound that didn't sound like machine humming, but almost like a lullaby humming. A tune I'd never heard, but could never get it out of my head after that day. When I woke up, my ex-wife was holding me and shaking. I had been screaming at the top of my lungs for a solid 45 minutes. It was so bad I had to go to the hospital to get checked out and was forced to not speak for 2 weeks. Normally, dreams, even nightmares, leave my mind and I never remember them. But this one still haunts my memories, even 12 years later. Now, I think of it as just a vivid dream, but for a long time, I thought for a certain I saw beyond the simulation. My son, just after being born with the cord tight around his neck, was blue and still and just so not there. The doctors rushed him to a crib that was supposed to supply oxygen, but it wouldn't activate. They struggled and people came rushing in, fiddling with the apparatus and getting progressively more frantic, hitting buttons and turning knobs and the like. Then, an older doctor walked in, probably the oldest person in the room, reached down and cut a tube which he shoved in my son's nose. My son quickly came to life and was fine. The doctor who had solved the problem just looked around at the staff there and walked away. Not without me saying thank you, though. I probably have a few myself, but I'm more interested in yours. I like the comment section and I'd like to hear a few more, so let me know if you've ever had a moment just like this, or different. Engine failed when I was maybe 14 and plane made an emergency landing in the middle of nowhere, non-commercial airport. When I was maybe 16, a relative passed out while driving. I was in the back seat, and we spun around 3 times, and cars were coming at us. We crashed in an alley. A dog ran in front of the car. I was maybe 5 years ago, and the driver did not see it because another dog was running toward us closer to her, and she saw that one. I yelled no, and the driver then barely stopped in time. 25 years ago in winter, a friend was driving in winter, and we did a 180 on ice on a street known for being dangerous in winter. My friend was visiting my house for my birthday and kept passing out then getting right back up, like he was fine and didn't remember what happened. His head hit a TV we just bought and he broke it. We had to call 911, of course. I thought he was going to die. Oh, and the first time he passed out, his eyes looked weird and I thought he was having a seizure. He's fine now. My son was diagnosed with an allergy to dairy when he was 6 months old. My husband didn't really believe it until my son's throat closed while eating a piece of Italian bread that had milk in it while at my mother-in-law's. My husband had zero idea what to do, so I grabbed my son's EpiPen and injected him, and we drove to the hospital. It was in that moment that I knew if in a life or death situation, my husband was useless, and it would be up to me to save us. Okay, so it was a pretty cloudy day outside, and my little brother was playing by the road in the dirt. My mom was already outside when I went out there, but then she went inside for a moment. Then I noticed some old man walking his dog in the street, passing by our house. I thought it was suspicious, but not nearly as suspicious when I noticed him starting to turn around to walk back toward my brother. Funny enough, midway, he stopped when he saw me, standing there and giving him a confused look, and flashed me a surprised look, and he briskly walked away. I was only 10 and he was 5 and was oblivious to what would have happened if I wasn't there. Sometimes I worry about what would have happened if I wasn't there to watch over him. If there are any other Masons checking this, the 2-inch heart attack. Story time. Another worker and I were doing a task for a general after hours. The building had an elevated courtyard, upon which our man lift was situated. We were shooting up to the 7th story. The lift had been used by cladders, all the sensors were bypassed, and all the readouts were covered in tar and blue tack. As we approached our final destination, I felt the boom begin to tip. I said, "Did you feel that?" As we bobbed, little Jared said no, but on the next bob, felt the back tires lift and hastily sucked us back down. Huh? My mom dropped me off at her friend's house for me to be babysat. Must have been 4 years old. House was pretty big, and my mom's friend put me in a room that had a bed in the middle of the entire room and was surrounded by dolls. I told the lady I was uncomfortable and wanted to sleep elsewhere, but she said no. I remember laying there, and all the dolls were just staring at me. Swear some of them were blinking too, and I was scared AF. I was trying to fall asleep, but I heard loud noises, weird scuffling, and I think some laughing. Worst was when one of the dolls fell. I remember getting up, turning on the lights, staring at the fallen doll and not sleeping. I stayed up because I felt as if all the dolls were moving closer to me, blinking, laughing, etc. And I couldn't tell which one of them it was. Big room full of dolls, but I knew that there was already one doll that moved and fell near me. Later, I think the same night, someone broke the front door glass, and it was really loud. From what I remember, the lady was crying and panicking on the phone with police, I think. And she either took me to a different place or back to my mom's. Can't remember how I got back. I just remember those weird dolls. Last fall, on a sunny Sunday, my kids and I had been staring at screens all day. It was the end of September, and it was still warm in the Midwest. I decided we needed to get out of the house, and so I loaded us up for a little hike. We drive to a park, and that's a few miles from our house that abuts against the fairgrounds and the freeway. It's only 6:15 when we pull up, but with the canopy of the forest blocking the sun, it suddenly seems like it's getting dark fast. It's also buggy AF. So, no sooner than we start up the trail, of course, we have to stop to fish the bug spray out of the tiny backpack my 7-year-old daughter had brought along with all of her hiking gear. I'm unzipping the pack when I suddenly register that there's a man sitting on a bench I hadn't noticed before. The bench is sort of perched off to the side of the first fork in the trail, and close enough to the entrance that the parking lot and highway were still very visible through the trees. My daughter notices him too, and whispers, "Mom, there's a man there." I smile and tell her I'm aware, shooting the man an apologetic glance. Except it's not a glance, because for more than a moment I can't look away. There's something in his gaze that turns my tummy, not in a good way. I mentally shake myself, trying to keep on task while swatting at the biting bugs, still digging for spray, and my son is begging me to watch him do cartwheels in the corner. As I bowed my head, still wallowing through her bag, the man says, "You going that way?" And because I process things slowly when I'm multitasking, I said, "What's that?" and look up again, even though I'd heard him. This time he says, "Buggy today." Once again, my eyes catch on his, and this time I note the overwhelming sense of intent in the way he's looking at me, and perhaps even past me toward my daughter, like a lion peering at its prey between blades of switchgrass. Now the uneasiness in my trunk is spreading quickly. Questions start rapid firing in my brain. Where did this man come from? There's only one car in the parking lot aside from mine, and in it are 2 younger girls listening to music and smoking pot. Aside from the fairgrounds, there's not really anywhere to walk from, and they're closed for the season. And why is he just sitting on this bench facing the road and parking lot, just deep enough to be concealed? And why did he change what he said? I tell myself that I've watched too many true crime docs, and that I'm being paranoid, and chance another glance in his direction, knowing, praying that surely by now his attention would have at least shifted to the road or to my son, who was still doing cartwheels while making fart noises. That motherfucker hadn't moved a millimeter. His eyes had seemingly darkened like the looming timber around us, but that was all that had changed. He was still just openly staring at me and my daughter, like we were his fucking lunch. It was enough. I made sure not to break eye contact, as I hurried, now screaming, kids down the path to my car, loudly exclaiming it was too buggy and time to go. He watched me go the whole way back, but stayed glued to the spot. I fled home, feeling like I'd narrowly missed becoming a Dateline story myself, but also feeling sleepish, like maybe I'd overreacted. But I couldn't shake how very off I felt, even hours after I'd been home, restless. So, instead of sleeping, I started going through the county's recent mugshots, hoping I'd get lucky and see his pic posted. Scrolled back 3 months, 6, nothing. Clicked over to the sex offender list and scrolled all the way to the bottom before I found him. Almost missed him, because in the first photo of him on the site, he's got a full head of hair, and I could tell the creeper from the woods had been bald for a while, but his eyes caught me. I swiped right, and sure enough, he looked just as I'd seen him a mere hours before in the second photo. And I wouldn't, you know it, he's wanted for illegal misconduct with a minor and several counts of child porn. I alerted the authorities and told them everything. Never did hear if they got him. I've always regretted not telling the girls in the other car to get them out of there. I sure hope they're okay, but I'll never go hiking in that park again. I get the creeps just driving by, and I'll always trust my gut. Always, no matter what. My dad took me to Egypt, just us two. Hotel was on the Nile. Sincere boatman befriended my dad, offered to take us to his village. Dad said yes. Wife made us dinner. Son asked me if I wanted to go play in the village while she prepared dinner. My dad allowed me. Walked for what felt like an hour. Watched kids play ping pong in some random village square. Young man followed me around the ping pong table with a scythe. He then walked off. 2 minutes later, a glass bottle got thrown into the crowd. All the kids ran, including the kid that brought me there. I stood there confused. The bottle exploded, and whatever liquid was in there burned or cut my leg badly. For a while, I was lost in a village in Egypt as an 11-year-old kid. When we eventually got back, I was too scared to tell my dad what happened, thinking I was going to get in trouble. I wouldn't have. My dad would have got killed by my mum. I spent the rest of the holiday covering up the burns. This happened on September 11th, 2001, probably how I got away with covering up what happened to me. I told him last year, as he's skeptical. Almost ran into one of the deadliest snakes in the world as a child. If I had been bitten, I would have had 15 minutes to get the antivenom. We were on a trail in the bush in a small town that probably didn't have nearby ambulances. Eastern brown snake was sunbathing in the middle of a steep path that I decided to run down. Overseas friend almost lost her battle with mental illness, and there was nothing I could do. She's still here today. We aren't friends anymore, though, for some semi-related reasons. Some people have become violent to those of my faith. A kindergarten and a place of worship was firebombed. There have been many more incidences of hatred aimed at my community.